Chapter 1. It's a terrible birthday until she walks into her bedroom to find him there, sitting on the edge of her bed like he never left. They make love, talk about the lost year, and make love again. Then he asks in a whisper, "Can I see her?" Or where Lucifer visits his family until Rory is old enough to remember him. More than a year goes by, and Chloe tries. She really tries. She goes through the motions and tries to live a normal life. She tries to stay afloat in a career she once left behind and tries to raise a newborn and a hormonal teenager alone. Above all else, she tries not to miss him. Some days are harder than others. Some days the pain is so searing that it's difficult to breathe. Some days it's more of a dull ache. But it's always there, like the pain from a phantom limb. Her mind might know he's gone, but her body aches for him. She wonders how he's doing. She wonders if he's okay, if he still drinks whiskey like it's water, and if he still wears a three-piece suit and a smile like a weapon. She wonders how many people he's helped find redemption, and if it's everything he dreamed it would be, but she never has to wonder if he misses her like she misses him. She knows he does. A month for her is years for him, and if she's hurting, he must be in agony. But he did it anyway, let time run its course, and didn't change a thing because Rory asked him to. "I have never loved anyone the way I love you," he'd once said, and then his daughter came along. It had been a beautiful thing to see them together. Of all the things Chloe tries not to think about, how fiercely he loved their daughter and how he'll miss her childhood is top of the list. The promise of eternity somehow doesn't lessen that ache. Chloe stares at her, just 6 months old, cradled in her lap as the party rages on around her. It's her birthday, balloons and cake, and the chatter of friends surrounding her. They're trying as hard as she is, trying to put on a brave face, but Chloe doesn't feel like celebrating. She loves her daughter. She loves both her daughters, and she's grateful for so many things. She's grateful for them, and the fact that she'll get to watch them grow. Their first tooth, their first step, their first heartbreak. She's grateful to have people in her life who love her, who surround her with so much light and strength, who prop her up when she feels like falling apart. She's grateful to have a career that's entirely her own, something she's good at, and a search for justice that makes it feel new. In many ways, she's lucky, she knows that, but she misses him. God, she misses him. His smell, all whiskey and smoke and sandalwood cologne, and the way he smiled and the way he argued, and that delighted look he got on his face when he made her blush. She misses the way he clung to her every word, stared at her like she hung the stars, like she was the most important person in the universe. She misses his scotch-drenched kisses, his charm and his magnetism, and when she's alone at night, fingers dancing between her thighs, she really misses his touch. She misses all the prim little tugs on his jacket, the twist of the cufflinks at his wrists, the silly little way he'd get frustrated when his curls didn't sit right, and the constellation of freckles on his chest. She misses how unapologetically himself he was, divine but also somehow beautifully human, but most of all, she misses the way he loved her. She misses the way they loved each other. She cradles Rory in one arm and presses the palm of her other hand to her chest. This is one of the hard days. It's gone midnight, no longer her birthday at all when the guests leave and she can finally rest. Only as she puts Rory down in the nursery and opens her bedroom door, it's not dark, and a freshly made bed is waiting for her. It's Lucifer. She freezes, her hand paused on the handle as she tries to process it. Tries to understand how he's here after so many months without him. So many months of missing him, and now he's sitting, perched on the edge of her bed, like he never left. And it's not a dream. She breathes his name, the sound of something sacred on her lips, and takes a step towards him. He doesn't say anything as she finally reaches him. Her hands hover over the curve of his jaw, moving slowly as though he might disappear, slip through her fingers again, and vanish into the dark. "You can touch me," he murmurs, hands lifting to curl his warm fingers around her wrists, and then he begs, "Please touch me." Her breath catches in her throat as he brings her palms to his face. She feels the rasp of his stubble against her skin, the softness of his pillowy lips as she runs her fingertips over them. She wants to kiss him, so she does. He sighs into it, like a man who has finally had life breathed into him, and slips his hands to her face. It starts off slow and tentative, relearning each other before a desire that's lay dormant for months sparks to life. She deepens the kiss, slipping her tongue into his mouth as she climbs into his lap. She revels in the thick little sound that rolls from his chest, half a growl, half a groan, as his mouth slants over hers. He feels the same. He tastes the same. Everything that was good and strong and sexy about him is still in his kiss. She's breathless when they break away, an ache in her chest and between her legs. She doesn't greet him or even ask why he's here. She can't bring herself to yet. With a sick, manic sort of pain clenching at her, all she can do is hold back tears and whimper. "I'm trying, Lucifer. I'm trying to be brave, but I just miss you so much." He nods, melancholy and calm as he brushes a strand of hair behind her ear. "I miss you too," he says, constantly. "Always." "Do you think it'll get easier?" she asks. She fears the answer because she knows he won't grant her the small mercy of a lie. "I think we'll learn to live with it," he answers, "and then one day we won't have to anymore. You'll be with me, and these few years will feel like nothing but a blip in our eternal existence." She doesn't miss how these are the words Rory had used, ones he's clung to, ones that have stayed with him. She feels comforted by the notion and comforted by how she'll go on to raise a strong and clever daughter, as strong and clever as Trixie. A swell of pride blooms in her chest. She stares at him, taking in the strong lines of his face. Her gaze drifts over his dark eyes, the ones he gave to their daughter. She's always thought he had beautiful eyes, so deep and expressive, and she's glad she gets to keep them in her life. Obviously, she knows what Rory will look like when she's older. With her dark coloring, she knows that she'll look more like him than her, and other people might find that painful. She finds it comforting that he might be gone, but she'll see him every day in the child they made. Her very existence is a testament to Lucifer's love for her, his willingness to be vulnerable for her to cut open and laid bare, and his desire for a family. "Are you okay?" she asks then, because it feels very important. "Are you happy?" She watches the movement of his throat as he swallows. "With my purpose, yes," he skirts around the question. "You remember Father Kinley?" She nods because how could she forget? "I got him to heaven." Her eyes widen, an incredulous laugh escaping her lips. "Lucifer, that's amazing. I am so proud of you." He preens at the praise, a genuine smile lighting up his handsome face. They stay like that, wrapped up in each other, just touching and talking and laughing. He tells her more about the work he's doing, and she tells him about Linda, Charlie, and Maze, and all the friends he left behind. They both talk about Amanadiel, his visits to Earth to see Charlie sprout his wings, and his visits to Hell to ask for his brother's advice. Eventually, the hands on the clock creeping to 2 a.m., she registers that she has him, all of him, beneath her. She shifts in his lap, rolling her hips a little closer, and doesn't miss how his eyes flicker to her mouth. "Are you tired?" he asks, voice dropping a note. She swallows and shakes her head. "No." She leans in, their mouths brushing electric. "I'm not tired." She feels the curve of his smile as he wraps an arm around her waist and hauls her tighter against him. When it's done, and then done again, when a thin sheen of sweat glistens on their skin, she rests her head on his chest and traces his freckles with her finger. Moves that can make the devil blush indeed. His chest moves with a chuckle. "I've missed this." "I'm sure you have." Her mouth twists into a wry grin. "Big Ben not striking 10 for thousands of years," he huffs incredulously. "I'm surprised I can even walk properly. To think I made fun of Carol for his 15-month dry spell." Chloe laughs. "Well, no need to worry about that anymore. He stops her, his mouth pinching in disgust. "I really don't need to hear about Miss Lopez's sex life, thank you very much." She smiles, knowing he thinks of Ella as a sister. Silence falls over them as she settles her head back on his chest and counts his even breaths. Eventually, his fingers raking through her loose hair, he murmurs, "Happy birthday, darling." She snuggles closer. "This is the best present I could have asked for." "Don't speak too soon, because there's a vintage Ferrari in your drive." A smirk curves across his face, and a diamond bracelet that used to belong to Grace Kelly in the glove compartment. She blinks, sitting up and facing him. "Are you serious?" Well, yes, she gave it to me as something to remember her by after we... She steals his next words with a kiss, not needing to hear that either. Thank you, she whispers. A certain Miss Hepburn did the same with some earrings. I'm saving them for next year. Chloe swallows, unsure of what this all means. Next year? I figure the odd visit can't do any harm, he shrugs, at least until Rory's old enough to recognize and remember me. She bites her bottom lip, her mind racing. She doesn't know if this is for the best or if it will change anything, but she can't bring herself to question it either. She'll take scraps of him, desperate for any part of him, until she can have all of him. Speaking of... He pauses, a flicker of pain sweeping over his face, before he asks in a whisper, "Can I see her?" Her mouth twitches into a melancholy smile and she touches her forehead to his. Of course. Chloe tries not to cry as she watches him gently reach into the crib and pick Rory up. He swallows as he holds the sleeping baby to him, cradling her in one arm. With his other hand, he touches his fingertips to her cheek. She's absolutely perfect, he whispers reverently. She is, Chloe agrees, coming to stand beside him, although I didn't think so when she was coming out of me. His mouth curves into a smirk, but his tone is serious when he asks, was it really awful? She doesn't see the point in lying. I'd forgotten how much it hurts, she admits. Linda was a lifesaver, though. She held my hand the entire time. She doesn't miss the flickers of hurt and guilt that pass over his face. Don't apologize, she demands before he can. No more sadness, no more tears. Just be with us. He nods, turning his eyes back to his daughter. She's so tiny, he murmurs, careful not to wake her. It feels strange not seeing her head to toe in leather, with pink streaks in her hair and a scowl on her face. Chloe laughs, leaning her head on his shoulder. I'll have the toddler tantrums to get through before she's the stroppy kid we knew and loved. The implication, I not we, hangs heavy in the air between them. Yes, she doesn't even know how to be angry at me yet, he's joking, but the words ring hollow and Chloe's eyes and throat burn. Lucifer. She starts heavily, dragging his gaze to her. How am I supposed to listen to that? How am I supposed to just sit there and let her believe you abandoned her, abandoned us? He leans in and places a kiss on her forehead. You'll find a way, he says simply, confident and full of faith in her, because it's not easy. But you know it needs to be done. I hope you're right. I'm always right, darling. He grins with a touch of that old arrogance, a flare of pride, and then he kisses her forehead again with a thank you. For what? For my daughter, he murmurs, the word heavy with significance, for giving me a family. For you. For everything. You know, Rory said I saved her, and maybe I did. But it all started with you. I'm able to save the broken because you saved me. You taught me how to love and healed what I thought was unhealable. She feels a tremble in her bottom lip, and she clenches her jaw to try and stave it. I love you, she whispers, and she'd said no more tears, but one rolls down her cheek anyway. He brushes it away with his thumb and leans down to press a kiss on the wet path it leaves behind. I love you, he repeats, always. She knows that. She also knows he deserves some time alone with his daughter. Sometimes that's just theirs. They have so little of it after all. So she leans up onto her tiptoes, kisses his cheek and whispers, I'll give you some time. He nods, and she leaves, but she can't help hovering by the door and listening as he speaks to the baby. You don't know me yet, and you won't remember me, but I'm your dad, he says, sounding like he still can't quite believe it himself. I'm sorry I wasn't here, that your mother had to welcome you into the world on her own. She's strong, as you will be. I'm sorry for everything that's to come. You're going to be very angry, but that's all right. Chloe rests a hand over her heart, full of warmth and love and admiration for him, as she continues listening. Because I love you enough to let you hate me, he murmurs, the words twisting painfully through Chloe's chest. I love you so much. She hopes he remembers that Rory will love him too. Perhaps not now, but when it counts.